Juventini, welcome back to the All Juve Cast channel. It's Alberto here with Anthony, and we are going to give you some reactions to the new Amazon Prime series focused on our beloved old lady. All right, the All or Nothing series came out on the 25th, and some of us on the team have motored through the entirety of the first night. I was one of them. Okay, it's fantastic. It's cool to peel that curtain back and take a look in behind the scenes of everything that's going on, especially during a season that brought so much change with Juventus, and it was very, very cool to see. So Anthony and myself are going to take you through some of these points that we saw in there that had interesting reactions, funny reactions, and just a lot of good stuff. Anthony?
Oh, it's first off, I did not motor through anything. I've only watched the first two episodes, and we're recording this on Friday morning on the 26th. So don't tell me what happens. Kind of know what happens, but I did no research looking back into this season. So it was all kind of fresh. The game recaps and some of the storylines. So it was nice to kind of relive that and forgetting everything that happened. But first impression was, I think this one's going to be already better than the Netflix one that came out a couple of years ago. So far for me, I think it's the way it's shot. I thought Amazon did a good job just through the first two episodes. I'm told it gets a lot better. And one thing is the translation. It's kind of a little bit weak. There's one time when Agnelli's talking and they don't really catch up until like his second sentence. But other than that, so far, first two episodes, loving it.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point on the translation. It's the one thing I was looking at. Like, I have the good fortune to understand the Italian so that it doesn't affect me. But even watching some of the ones where they are on point as far as timing to translate, it's still slightly off in the translation because it literally looks like they maybe didn't get an honest translator and just literally typed into Google Translate, and this is what they got, because a lot of it is slightly mistranslated, which actually changes the tone and demeanor of some of the stuff that's being said, right? So it's an interesting one. But first episode, I mean, you kind of just meet the cast, right? They take you through Chiellini, Buffon, Pirlo, of course, Bonucci. You start to see a little bit of an inside glimpse on the management, and a lot of interesting stuff. Buffon, it was nice. Obviously we're removed now. He's with Parma in Serie B there, and I can never get enough of Gigi Buffon. Okay, and just the way the guy speaks about number one, the club, everything. It's just it's great. So hearing some of these guys talk about Pirlo being brought on is interesting, because there was a lot of shock from us, Juventini, that hey, Pirlo is now going to be leading the side, and you see Buffon talk about, and he goes, yeah, you know what though, he's going to do well. A lot of them all said the same thing about Pirlo. What they liked about him was that he had the mentality to face it, because he's unfazed, and it's cool because you see it. You see it in these episodes, how he's like this all the time. He never goes up here, he never comes down here. He in the locker room, you see a little bit of different, which is cool because everybody questioned that about him. Say, we need a rah guy. Well, on the sideline, Pirlo's pretty contained, but behind the scenes, you see a different Pirlo, which was cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you have a coach coming in, and I think a lot of looking back and kind of trying to remember back. Okay, we're bringing in Pirlo, and if I'm not mistaken, Sarri was fired the same day that they hired Pirlo, right? Or if it was a couple days.
It was a couple days later,
right? So it was always, there was rumors about it, and there was a lot of, I think a lot of Juventini had hesitation. Okay, how's he going to do? And even throughout the year, his calm demeanor on the sidelines, is that translating to the locker room? And bang, in the first episode, you can see how his passion's coming out, how he's trying to guide the team in training, giving his inputs. And another one that actually you and I didn't talk about before we started here was how he went man to man to a couple players, like to Pellegrini and Piazza, to say, sorry, we don't have room for you.
Yeah.
So, and that was essentially like his first couple weeks because he came on in August. So, he put
And
on his big boy pants to get that done.
And one of the interesting things to key in on here too is that Cherubini was lingering in all of those discussions too, and Cherubini obviously now taken over for Paratici because a
Mhm.
lot of people weren't really paying attention to Cherubini or knowing who he was, but you see him very much involved, and it's interesting because he walks over to Pellegrini as well while Pirlo's having that discussion. He says, "Mino knows about what's going on," right? And it's interesting because you're just like, man, it gives you another aspect to think about that like it's that involved with certain agents that
Mhm.
like they find out, first and foremost. Mino finds out first and foremost
Oh yeah.
before players are even approached, right? So it was cool to kind of see that because you're like, okay, yeah. So this connection between Juve, Mino, whatever, all this, like it was interesting. Props to Pirlo because you heard him say that. And one of the things Cristiano Ronaldo said about Pirlo was he was very surprised that he was appointed.
Mhm.
A lot of the players were because the week prior they named him as the U23 coach. Then he got
Right.
named to the head coaching job as Sarri was removed. And Ronaldo said, very, very surprised. But he just thought about it the same way as when he was at Real and Zidane came aboard. Zidane had this way of understanding the players. And Pirlo speaks to that when he approaches Marco Piazza, Pellegrini, about saying like there's no room for you on the squad. But he has a really good discussion with Marco, and he says just focus on balling, focus
And
on doing your
don't
thing.
don't worry about getting injured. Just,
Yeah,
do
stay
you.
healthy.
Yeah.
Worry about playing football next year. I want to see you here. And he spoke about too, and he goes, I think about myself and I would want to hear it from, the
Mhm.
mister before hearing it from the club.
Right.
And it was big. Even Pavel, when they finally gathered together, Pavel, Cherubini, and Pirlo, Nedved's almost surprised because he says, "Oh, you've already talked to him." Pirlo's, "Yeah, I talked to him. I told both of them." And it was cool to see, right? Like
Yeah.
it was good to see that Pirlo was doing that kind of stuff, and he was seeing it from the players' point of view. So interesting spot there. Meeting the cast, we continue to meet the cast. Very very funny segment there between McKennie and Chiellini having lunch there, and McKennie just talking about God knows what burgers, and then
But
ranch dressing on pizza.
that's an American kid.
Oh yeah,
That's what a kid would say. He's probably nervous as hell to sit. You're sitting with Chiellini at lunch, and you got Demerel over here beside you, looking
Van
like about to
Helsing
stab.
over there in the long coat. Who has lunch in a long coat? Anyways, yeah,
And he keeps kind of like staring over at McKenny, like, "What are you talking about?" And he probably doesn't even understand what the hell he's talking about,
no,
like ranch dressing. And I know that became a whole meme, but he's a kid. He was
yeah,
only
it's funny.
22, right?
You see him, Chiellini talks about, he's like, "Those shoes with the rollers," and he's just like, "What do you?" He's zipping around, Continasa and everything like with these shoes, and I think it's hilarious. But
Like he's at the Great Mall of America in Minnesota or something. He's zipping around on the
oh, it's
heel
it's
skates.
hilarious. And then Chiellini just finally said, and you see Buffon on the opposite end, he's laughing because Chiellini goes, "Here, olive oil, that's it, and it's beautiful." It's like that's all we use.
But it
It
was nice to see that, like, that was probably not their first interaction, but it was one of their first ones, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you talk to a new teammate? Well, you try and build some common ground, and you know, sometimes you have to be honest about what coffee does to you. And McKenny was completely honest what
Oh
espresso
my
does to him.
god, yeah, that was, really, really funny with the espressos there, and, I'm sure and everybody knows it, it's funny, and some of the comments and reactions from others are just like, "Well, yeah, but that's just a part of it, you just deal with it." Very, very funny. Good stuff. Bonucci, as we continue to meet the cast, Bonucci's brought in, and, it's,
Polarizing.
yeah. Yeah, really, really is. And just the flashbacks
Mm-hmm.
of many, many moments prior, and you think back, I couldn't help but think back and just, man, the celebrations, the intensity. I had Benucci level with those guys prior. I will admit the Milan move hurt me quite a bit, and it kind of bumped him down a peg for me. I I forgave
Still?
I forgave him when he came back because I said now he's part of the team again. I'm gonna forget about that.
Mhm.
But I'll admit that I think almost subconsciously it kinda he just kinda took a step down for me in terms of his legacy overall. Of
Mhm.
course, he will be a Juventus legend, and it's undeniable based on his contributions. The the record-setting defense he was a part of, the accolades are all there, the trophies are there. Um, but it's almost like that one just moment, like, kinda tainted things. But
It hasn't
seeing
for me.
this seeing this, it's kinda,
Mhm.
like, taking me back, and you start to see the importance and everything, and it's just like, you know what? I did forgive him, and I haven't really thought about it or talked about it in a long time, but seeing this, they also bring it up and they discuss it. They don't get in depth into it by any means, but
Mhm.
it's mentioned and they talk about it, and you still see his importance. You see how he talks and interacts with the young guys and what he does. He is right there with Gigi and Chiellini in terms of importance as a leader and everything like that. And in the locker room, peeling the curtain back, you see a lot more of the kinds of discussion, the kind of words that come out of his mouth. And it's exactly the stuff that an ambassador for Juventus should be saying.
Yep.
And that was a beautiful thing for me in terms of Bonucci. Your thoughts?
He um everyone makes mistakes in life, like
Yeah.
you make business decisions, and as much as people don't want to admit it, soccer is a business, and they have their own image, and they have their own self to worry about. I know everyone wants these legends, like some of these guys I have up on the wall behind here, to be team legends, and Bonucci is a team legend. And I think he made one business decision for a year, and a lot of people are gonna, not like him for that. I personally, that doesn't bother me at all. Even when he was at Milan, didn't bother me at all. But he's back now, and like you said, you peel back the curtain, you can see how he is with his teammates, and he's pretty much the same. Like what you see on the field and what you see in behind the scenes, it's the same guy, right? The intensity's there. I think so, more so in the second episode, they do a little bit more behind the scenes with Bonucci and his kids, and how one of his kids is a Torino fan who wanted the Belotti shirt. That was kind of funny. But he, he's that guy, and he even mentioned something along the lines of, you know, we have to keep things serious. Some guys, they have
Yeah.
want to have fun, and I think he was talking specifically about McKennie. Like he's a jovial guy. He wants to have fun, but you need to take this serious 100% of the time. So,
Well, and
um,
we'll talk about this, some of the interactions between Bonucci and one of the key guys right now, in the youngster that wasn't. He joined later, a little bit later than those other newcomers, which was Chiesa.
mhm.
So, and it's interesting because you start to see some of the dynamic unfold there, and even Morata gets into kind of Morata joining, and it's funny because like Paratici's sitting there like, Pavel, we need to sign a striker tomorrow. It's like, okay. Like,
Like that's your job, man. That's not
it's
Nedved's job. That's your job.
yeah, it was funny because it's just like, wow, did they just like and they just kind of leave you there like, did they not have targets
Yeah.
before this discussion? It's just like, hey, we need a striker tomorrow. Like, it's funny, but then they do kind of shed a little bit of light in a management meeting where they're saying, and they're kind of speaking to the camera, narrating that they're meeting together because you're trying to bring somebody in
Mhm.
with nothing to offer immediately, which becomes very, very difficult. And this highlights the deals that they're trying to work through during the COVID scenario and everything. And we know financially, Juventus is hurt right now because of that pandemic. And it just shed some light on that whole scenario. Then you see Morata come back. And again, all the feels, a guy who's comfortable and whatnot, going around, saying the hellos. Um,
And for
and
me, Morata's a club legend for me, only because he is a guy who loves the club. And I haven't, like I said, I've only seen the first two episodes, but knowing the conversations that he has, in interviews and what he posts on like Instagram and all that sort of stuff, he loves the city and he loves the club.
Yeah.
So he'll always be near the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat. I'll always have love for Alvaro, no matter what. And then we get to entering Chiesa. Okay, and it's interesting to see because Pirlo's walking there with Baronio there, his assistant, and you see a lot of that relationship too, which is interesting as well.
I've only seen the first two. Let's just pump the brakes.
So, okay, Chiesa enters, okay, and you see Pirlo talking to Baronio there, saying we need to make room. They want to bring Chiesa in. And it's interesting there because it does kind of leave you thinking about, well, did they just? It was almost like they just told Pirlo, like, hey, yeah, we're gonna get this player. Like it
Yeah.
is what it is, and you kind of wondered if that's the way it always kind of worked like that. And then of course now we look at this season, and what we're being told is that Allegri has final say on yes or no, right? And I wish they would have just kind of painted that picture if not that I think Pirlo would ever say no to Chiesa or whatnot, but it would have been cool to see if that was happening even prior. So right. I don't think it was. I think it was just a matter of they
No,
would get players and
no,
this
I
is
think
right.
it
And
was like
maybe that could be part of some of the transfer issues that have taken place over the past couple of seasons is just not allowing that input or allow it to be all as a group there, right? So they're very, very clever. Amazon Prime has been with just giving you a
just
smidge,
enough.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a short summer, right? That was the COVID summer. So I think
Yeah.
Champions League went, I think there was
Yeah.
the halt, and then the Champions League went into like June, July. So even if Pirlo had a say, it was August, and then boom, the season started in September.
Absolutely. So Chiesa joins, then you hear him talking about Juventus,
And Buffon.
and just how it's a dream, and
Yeah.
then you start to see the interactions. Then you
Yeah.
start getting the interactions with Buffon, who of course played with his father Enrico and whatnot. And it's
Mhm.
interesting. Bonucci makes me laugh in this one because as they're talking about this, and Chiesa is reminiscent about moments Enrico told him about with Gigi
Mhm.
walking in there with a headband and the spiky hair and
The blonde hair? Do you say the
yeah, when
blonde
he had the
hair?
blonde spiky hair and he scared Federico and he was crying all the time. And then they were just talking about it's wild. Chiesa said, I don't know what's more wild for me is playing with him or is it wild for Gigi playing with me,
Mhm.
Enrico's son. And then Bonucci cracked me up because he goes, Gigi's going to end up playing with my kids too. And it's just it's cool seeing that interaction. And then going back to Bonucci, you see a separate session where they're having lunch, and Chiesa's cracking jokes. He's cracking jokes, and he's and you even see Pirlo as he's loading his plate look over and whatnot. And he's kind of got a smirk on his face, and then you see Leo just he's eating, and then he goes, "Hey, it's not an obligation to
Obligatory.
talk
Yeah.
during lunch, right? It's not an obligation to speak during lunch."
Like,
And it was
calm
just like,
down,
what?
man. Calm
And
down.
and Chiesa kind of gives it back to him. He stands his ground and he goes, Leo goes, "You're attacking me." And he goes, "It's good." He goes, and then Bonucci just, he's like, "Well, I'm kind of talking to all you guys."
Yeah.
He plays it off that way to not just single him out, whatnot. And then it cuts out to Chiesa talk about Leo, and he goes, "Leo's tough, man."
Yeah.
Leo's tough.
And that's what you expect from like your old guys. Like, but it's lunch. Like, let the kid eat lunch. But and that just goes to show you that fans don't want to think that sometimes players don't take this seriously, and they do. But maybe sometimes after a game, I know some fans get upset. They see a player go to a bar or a club, but you need to have outlets. But you can see that in preparation for games, that lunch could have been like the day before a big game. You don't know,
Yeah.
and a guy like Bonucci, he's going to get in that mental zone, 24 hours before or 48 hours before. So
Oh
I'd say
yeah.
lighten up a little bit, but I don't blame him. That's his job, and he's a
Yeah,
leader on
and
that
it's
team.
cool again, just playing back to Bonucci being an ambassador and fans like to take shots a lot of the time. You're right about just saying, these guys don't care, they just care about the paycheck. But there's a prime example of Bonucci caring
Mhm.
and taking things very, very seriously. And he backs it up again in the locker room with everything he says.
I think we should circle
Another
back one thing too before is the Agnelli. This was read the first episode when he was talking to the whole team, and talking
Yes.
about Juventus being all 800 people. That was a very interesting
Yeah.
discussion
Especially
with everybody.
following it up with the fact that we won the Scudetto under Sarri, and he said, "Look, regardless of what happened, that was a shitty year." And I was
Unbelievable.
just like, "Wow," like. But this again for me was huge because Agnelli has come under fire, past couple seasons. But seeing that kind of, it should reignite everyone's sense of belief or whatnot about this guy because he's always got Juventus
Hmm.
and them succeeding and being top and ahead of everybody else in his mind. Whether or not it's not going to happen every single season though. That's the thing. But in a season where we won the Scudetto, he called it how it is and he attempted changes. And I have nothing but respect for that. And I think a lot of Juventini should maybe look at that and, yeah, maybe start to have some more faith in this guy because he's always, always not satisfied.
Right.
And it's what we demand and ask of this team to be. And you just got evidence right there that he's not satisfied,
And
you
it's
know?
what you want. It's what you want to hear from your owners when he says, anyone who dares touch one of you has to go through me first.
Yeah.
That's what you want to hear your owner say. And then he also said, Juventus is 800 people, staff, all the teams, 800 people. We all win, 800 win together and 800 lose together. So he's not singling out the first team. He's not singling out the women's team or the youth teams. It's to him, it's one large family. Like they all move forward together. So it was
Yeah.
nice to see that. Like you see him in press conferences or little snippets here and there, but I'm hoping, and I don't know, maybe you can tell me or not. I'm hoping we see more of him as the series goes on. I'd like to hear more from him. Not so much his beard, because his beard is, but I'd like to hear more from him.
It's yeah, it's just good. It's just a well, and I agree with you what you said earlier. Like the Netflix one was cool to see from more of a fan standpoint, but the diehards want more behind the scenes. The
Mhm.
diehards were left wanting much, much more from the Netflix one, and the Amazon one does a good job of giving you that. But again, they're so good at just keeping like the real goods under wraps, right? We continue on. Chiellini, just fantastic stuff from Chiellini in the second. Like it's
Mhm.
unbelievable. The work he put in to be able to join the team,
So that's
separate
coming
training
off
set.
the ACL injury, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The amount of work and just beginning day, end of the day. The side project was beautiful too.
mhm.
The kids, the
The
work with the
special needs
kids,
kids. Yep.
the jerseys, all the gifts, and man, Giorgio's a beauty, man. That's
Yep.
it's just a true testament of the man there that you see. Just all the praise he gets from his teammates, he gets it from opposition. Okay,
Mhm.
and that's always like the true testament is you're getting this praise from guys that don't even play with you day in day out, but. Chiesa even just sitting there across from him. McKennie was sitting across from him, and you see Giorgio go in and greet absolutely everybody that comes through the door, and hey,
It
how you
seems like
doing?
he's the first one people meet. Like when
Yeah,
Morata came in, it was him. When McKennie came in, it was him. And I
yeah,
think from other series, I think Ronaldo, like when he first came in, they show him meeting Chiellini. So
yeah.
he's always the guy. He's always the first one there.
Chiellini is one of the ambassadors, and that's why I think like it's a no-brainer, and it's going to be an easy segue for him to get into a role with
Mhm.
Juventus. He's the
Oh, when
perfect
Locatelli came
ambassador.
in,
Sorry,
the first guy he went and saw was
yeah,
Chiellini.
it's Giorgio.
Mhm.
And Chiellini again sitting there having meals with these guys and talking about them and being jovial. And then Chiesa saying it like Chiellini is an absolute animal on the pitch. Off the
Mhm.
pitch, he's as true as they come. Very, very calm, relaxed, and puts you at ease. And he's very, very good with the young guys. Like really, really good with the young guys. But and it's interesting to see the yin and yang with Chiellini and Bonucci, right?
Mhm.
And like that part, you think about that partnership on the pitch and everything like that, and Chiellini on the pitch is a different animal. Off the pitch, he's a little more, but Bonucci's kind of like that bad cop, right? Like
Right, good cop, bad
he's
cop. Yep.
he knows that role, and it was cool to see. But with the Chiellini's work with the kids and stuff, it's just it was cool to see.
And
Um,
they're both when they both speak. I'll specifically Bonucci and Chiellini. Their words are very calculated, and there's no like hesitation in what they say. Like they mean what they say, whether it's good or bad. Direct. They're very. I guess that's the word, calculated, in how they communicate and how they do interviews and how they talk to their teammates. They
yeah,
know the right tone to set with every conversation.
yeah. And another interesting point carried on with these episodes was where there's smoke, there's usually
Oh
fire.
yeah.
Very, very interesting that us as fans, back in the day when I started following and supporting Juve, I didn't have anywhere near the access of information like, available to me that we have nowadays. And McKennie being overweight, they cut into this and you start seeing him going through medicals and they figure out he's 18% body fat. And they're like, that's a big no-no. And
But he
they put
wasn't
him on
like
it.
overweight. It's just the like he wasn't huge.
No, it's for their,
Yeah.
requirements and
Yep.
whatever in their peak performance conditions. Like they say, you need to hit a certain body
Mhm.
fat percentage. So they put them on a diet. They speak about it being important that they do it very, very slowly because it can affect you
Mhm.
performance wise in training and games and everything, right? And it's just a healthy way to go about it. So they put them on a diet and whatnot. But it's interesting because when it came out, you hear all these rumors and everybody,
Mhm.
oh, that's just garbage. That's just neither here nor there. Just goes to show you nowadays, people are so connected and in tune
Yep.
that stuff you're hearing, it doesn't come up out of nowhere. Like these guys are insiders and they get a lot of information. Interesting too that you see Guido Vazio, right? He gets info from Tutto Sport, which also at the same time kind of makes me laugh because Tutto Sport puts out some wild stuff, but here you see him being very, very engaged and having inside information, and you see him getting those calls. But again, it's all really, really interesting.
And the kid likes his burgers. Like who does? Like I love burgers. I know
Burgers,
you do,
chicken
Al.
wings, fried chicken. I'm like, McKenny, you're speaking my language, buddy.
Donuts. When he won my heart when he said donuts. I'm
Yeah, McKinney is every one of us when it comes to that. Yeah, who doesn't want to play pro ball and enjoy burgers and donuts and chicken wings? And yeah,
absolutely.
sign me up. But he gets a little bit of a rude awakening
Yeah.
there. The guy's just looking at him like vegetables and fish.
Yeah.
And McKinney's
It's like,
like,
and
okay,
donuts.
yeah, we'll figure it out. And
Another behind the scenes thing that you and I kind of briefly discussed was Pirlo meeting with the communications and PR directors. That was I figured that happened, but that was wild. Those
I didn't think it
conversations,
was so in depth,
right?
like I thought you'd get like a briefing on the way to the presser. It's
Or
just
like,
like, "Hey,
here's a
be
piece of
ready for
paper,
this, this, and
read
this."
this.
Yeah. Like be ready for this, this, and this. I had
No,
no idea. It was like, "Hey, sit down, like this is what they're saying." Then you could see, Pirlo like they're saying this, like what's going on. But the funniest part was when the guys that are trying to prepare Pirlo basically say, "Well, they're all this talk about the uncertainty because you're the youngest coach in Syria," and he goes, "Well, I'm the same age as De Serbi," and they're like, "Oh," and
they're
he's
looking at
like,
their papers like, oh,
"They're like same month," and Pirlo's like, "Yes." So you're unprepared to prepare Pirlo, and it was just brilliant. And he almost doesn't even laugh; like he just says this stuff, and I'm like, "Oh man." It's
but
good. These are
but
there's a lot of great points here. We just
but
picked up so
Cheese in
many.
there,
Sorry?
Cheese in there where Cheese in there as well, and Nedved. So
Yes.
it's not just like one on one. Like they're all sort of preparing as a team for what to expect. It's so you can see how the whole team they all say the same message.
Yeah.
If they're all asked the same question, you're going to get the same answer because they've discussed it beforehand.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, while a lot of people think about Nedved and what he does, he's literally there to bridge the gap between management and players. So I start to wonder sometimes, like, and again, they do such a good job of showing you this, and you see this that there's an actual quite intense briefing about this presser that's going to take place. But then you see Nedved there standing up to the side, and you're like, is he going to keep an eye on if a coach might say something about a players that's not supposed to be said, or something like that? And it's really interesting. Again, they leave you hanging on,
Yeah.
just for your mind to wander and think about more of the dynamics and what happens, right? So it's very, very interesting. But yeah, these are all great points. We just picked out so much, and we've only done 2 episodes.
That's the
Okay.
first 2. That's
This
all
is
I've
just in
watched.
2 episodes. So again, without spoiling it, and I think we did a good job of not spoiling it for anybody that wants to see it, but you really, really, the only way I could say it, and I saw this on Twitter, and there was a lot of accounts that got were watching it and tweeting out content from it and snippets here and there. I simply put a tweet out. I didn't want to spoil it for anybody because it's really is fantastic. It's great, great stuff. So I didn't want to spoil it for anybody. We try our best here just to offer reactions to those who watch and see if they have the same thoughts and feelings. But watch it. Simply watch it. I'm going through it twice again because there's a lot going on.
I
And
would say that only watching the first 2, and there's the whole thing about the ranch dressing. Anything I saw on Twitter didn't ruin it for me, or
yeah,
in
that's
social
another
media.
point too, is like they're picking out some funny stuff. You see some memes and stuff, but there's
Those are
so
very
much in
small.
there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I simply say watch it. And the biggest thing I could take from it, having gone through the entire thing, it may change your personal opinion on certain players and staff. And that's
Okay.
it's really, really big because as fans, we're so passionate and we get so emotionally involved that a lot of the information we get, we feed off it, and it can,
Mhm.
mold our opinions and perceptions on certain people. This may very well change your opinion on a lot of certain players, staff, and the guys involved. It's very, very, very well done, and I have to leave it at that. But that's pretty much it for 1 and 2. And Anthony, would you agree in that molding people's minds and this
Yeah. Yeah.
potentially, changing your mind on certain people? Did the first 2 kind of affect you on anybody?
Well, seeing like the little snippet of Bonucci, like he was the sort of the main focus. Him and Chiellini were the main focus of the second episode, and seeing him with his boys, and how his one boy is a Torino fan and the other one's a Juventus fan. That was very interesting. Seeing the Chiellini rehab, and that kind of hit me because I don't have knee guy just as fun for my handle. Like I'm not going to say that I was at their level for football, but like rehab stinks. Like, and it's day in and day out. And I never even had to do it at that level. Like I couldn't even imagine the mental fortitude it takes to go through that. And then seeing your teammates out there, and then you still have your obligations to, other Juventus functions and that whatnot. But that was very interesting to me. So far, that small interaction with Chiesa and Buffon was interesting. I'm sure we're going to see more of Chiesa. I've heard things about that, but yeah, I'm looking forward. I might just crush the rest of them today. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. Thanks for recapping episodes 1 and 2.
Love
We're
it.
gonna come through with 3 and 4 probably in about a day or 2,
Mhm.
everybody, and just keep the reactions going. And of course, with anything we do, we're all about the discussions. And drop your comments, drop your thoughts and opinions so far on these episodes. Try not to spoil it for any of the other subscribers that might be reading through the comments, and even, of course, our own Anthony here. Try not to ruin it with those comments, but let's keep it to episodes 1 and 2 and immediate reactions. Can't wait to hear from all of you. And again, we'll talk soon. And don't forget, of course, tomorrow, Match Day Live, Juventus, Atalanta, 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You know the channel to be at. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you then. Fino alla fine. Forza Juventus. Ciao.